Hello and welcome to the No Man's Podcast. We are reviewing all of No Man's Land for Batman, even though I want to say Nightfall every single time I do this intro. Um, Looking at Brotherhood of the Fist, a five-part crossover between Batman, Detective Comics, Nightwing, Robin, and Green Arrow. It's the first veer off our path in the Road to No Man's Land Volume 1. I'm Mike.
I'm Vincent, and we have a special guest here. First time being on the show. Go ahead, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Michael. You can tell me apart from the other Mike if we're referring to ourselves by names, because I go by Michael, he goes by Mike. I have my own channel on YouTube. Michael Colley's my full name, and yep, been in this club a couple of years now. So, yep, I'm excited to be a part of this. Glad to be here.
Yep, glad to have you. So whenever we have new guests for the first time, depending on the show, we address what's your experience with the topic. And so here, even though this episode is pretty tangential, what is your kind of experience and connection and everything as a fan to Batman, just as a character and franchise? And then also, if you have any remote connection or history with No Man's Land.
Okay. As far as Batman goes, he's pretty much been my favorite superhero as long as like when I was a kid, I'd play with like little Batman toys and Batman coloring books and stuff. Um, I got a hold of a VHS tape of the first few episodes of the animated series. Watched that thing a whole bunch as a kid. Then got a hold of the Adam West movie, the Burton Schumacher movies, Dark Knight trilogy. So yeah, basically, I've just always been into Batman as supporting cast. He's probably the character. He's definitely the character I've read the most comics of at this point. I've tried to cover a lot of bases and so forth. No Man's Land in particular, I've been aware of for a while. I think I first learned about it when Dark Knight Rises was coming out, and it was being cited as an inspiration for it with the whole Gotham being locked off thing. So yeah, I know it was a massive crossover in the '90s and all that, and I knew some of the basic stuff like Gotham's an earthquake gets cut off from the world, but yeah, this is my first time reading the story, so yeah, enjoying it so far, or the prelude to it at least. But yep.
All right, cool. So we're gonna check out in the description. We're gonna link to Michael's channel, and also you can look at it. It should be shortly in the sidebar of the Students of S.H.I.E.L.D. main page. So go check out his videos. I know he does. You've done some fan casting videos. I think you've done one or two reviews, I think, of movies mostly.
I did before. I think I've momentarily got those on private or something. I'm thinking of tabling that one, but at least for the moment, I might get back into it. I'm starting to try and dabble in stop motion animation a bit. I've got an animation test up there, hoping to make some like Batman superhero fan videos out of Legos and stuff. So, uh, yeah, uh, yeah, a lot of fan casting on there. I think we've got one or two like movie ranking videos. Oh, you know what? I've also got some stuff. I took a film class at Penn State, and I made a couple movies for that class. So I've got those on there.
All right, cool. Everyone go check those out. Support a fellow student of S.H.I.E.L.D. So today we're talking about the five-part arc, Brotherhood of the Fist. This is kind of a total detour. We're in the middle of we're not technically in the No Man's Land crossover yet, but you know,
Over there.
yeah, the mega arc of Cataclysm, No Man's Land, etc. We're in the Road to section, and last episode was we referring to as Aftershock Part 1, and Aftershock Part 2 is next. But I kind of noticed, hey, there's a Detective Comics issue that's just totally skipped over, and it's not part of the. It's not considered part of the giant saga. It's not collected in most of the collections. And so Detective Comics 723, which we'll get to, is part of this 5-part crossover. And every single issue is written by Chuck Dixon, which is pretty interesting. And we start here with Green Arrow 134. And the cover prominently says it's guest starring Batman. And Batman is, like, in my opinion, way more prominent on this cover than Green Arrow himself.
He's more prominent in this issue than Green Arrow himself.
Yeah. So this is Chuck Dixon and artist Dougie Braithwaite, who, off the top of my head, and I didn't feel like Googling, I can't really cite a ton of other major stuff that Braithwaite has done, but I'm familiar with the name and everything like that. And I think eventually he starts going by Doug rather than Dougie. But Dougie Braithwaite, that's a pretty good name. So this is Connor Hawke, Green Arrow. Connor Hawke was introduced in Green Arrow number 0, which is a 0-year tie-in. And 0 came after 90, after
a 0-year tie-in?
Or 0 month or whatever. I get them mixed up.
You mean 0 hour?
No, not 0 hour, 0 hour. Yeah, 0 hour. But I think the 0 issues are called 0 month. And because, all the 0, I don't know. Because 0 hour, there's like 2 tie-ins in most titles to 0 hour. There's one like within the regular numbering and then a 0. And I forget which one. I think usually the 0 comes after the other one. So I don't know. He's introduced in 0, which comes after 91. And for further context, the Mike Grell run on Green Arrow, which is hugely celebrated, ends at Green Arrow 80. So you had a short period where it's still Oliver Queen without Connor Hawke. Then Connor Hawke gets introduced, and then you have basically him acting as a sidekick of sorts to his dad for about a year until Ollie dies in an airplane. Basically, his arm is stuck, attached to like a missile, and Superman is right next to him, and they just can't figure out a way to save him, and he blows up.
Superman's like, I can cut your arm off and automatically cauterize it. You'll be fine. And Green Arrow's like, I think he's literally says something like, I'm useless. I can't be an archer with one arm, which it totally, Dark Knight Returns completely debunked that.
Yeah, and obviously way before it. It's in my opinion, it's a really weird death in the pantheon of major superhero deaths. It kind of stands out, and I think part of it is that it never got like the same hype and attention, mostly because like, so like the Ollie's death is something that you really just know about from his resurrection. Like hardly anyone has, unless you were like reading at the time or you're a huge Green Arrow fan, like not many people have read Green Arrow 101 compared to, all the giant deaths like Superman and stuff like that.
Well, more people have read Quiver and in Smith's run than they have his actual death.
Yeah. So,
which is weird because I just finished reading that and now we're reading Connor Hawke. So that's actually kind of fun for me.
So then Connor Hawke has been the sole Green Arrow after Ollie's death for around 3 years at this point. And that's where we jump in here. So a member of the monkey cult, the Silver Monkey, was beat by Connor Hawke in some previous issue of the Green Arrow series. And we learn later that I guess Silver Monkey has also encountered Batman and Robin. And so the monkeys, they feel disgraced because one of their members were beat by this dumb Green Arrow character. So they all go out to kill him. And they come across his friend Eddie and Master Jansen. And so Eddie goes back to, he's like introduced right after Mike Grell. And he's like, I guess Ollie and Connor's weird buddy. He wears sunglasses, he smokes. He's kind of cool, dude.
Looks like Jim Gordon for some reason.
Yeah,
I know.
In a lot of
just like year one Jim Gordon. Kept distracting me.
Yeah, I mean, he's got the mustache and the sunglasses, so it's a striking resemblance, and the smoke
too.
Yeah, and then there's Master Jansen, who we don't get much of in this story, but I think he's a recent addition to the Green Arrow supporting cast, and he's like a martial arts monk guy because Connor Hawke has like this weird origin where he was like he's Ollie's bastard and was raised as like a monk partially. And so Connor Hawk, yeah, and Eddie, they come across Eddie and Master Jansen, these monkeys, and Eddie just murders them all. Well, it's self-defense, but he just guns them all down. Pretty badass. And we catch up with Connor Hawk now, and he's in, it's referred to as upstate Gotham, which totally confuses me because that like makes Gotham seem more like a New York parallel, which obviously it is, but New York still exists in the DCU. So I don't really know what upstate Gotham makes sense.
I guess it would be further out from where Wayne Manor is.
Yeah.
But Wayne Manor's just outside city limits. So.
But it's blanketed in snow. And Connor's based usually in San Francisco, so he's all the way across country, different environment, and he's tracking some weaponers to this like cabin, and runs right into Batman, who's in a badass snow costume.
He's in a pure action figure outfit.
Yeah, wasn't there like a snow Batman from like?
There was a snow Batman. It was a snow ski Batman, and then there was the same figure. It was white, red, and purple from the animated series, and then they had the same figure but orange and black, and that one was like water undersea Batman.
And Bruce is there because he got word from Talia to investigate something.
Yes.
And it turns out it's not actually a snow costume. It's one that can adapt, which is cool.
Yeah.
I think this arc, you see Batman use a lot of gadgets.
I like the red eyes.
Yeah. And Green Arrow is just, Connor's just totally impressed by Batman. He's like, Batman is like uberly competent. He's entirely confident, he knows exactly what he's doing, which is really cool, that contrast where it's like, here's this junior hero who's still learning and looks up to these more experienced heroes. It's cool up until Bruce starts like just shit talking Connor to his face and like dissing him. And Bruce, like he says, Connor, you're not good enough to watch my back. And he references his time with the Justice League, which is
references the issue where he saves them.
Yeah, he's basically referencing just JLA 8 and 9 and says that was probably a fluke. Which, I mean, those two issues, probably the most famous things Connor Hawk has ever done.
That's the number one thing anyone mentions when anyone brings up Connor Hawk, is those two issues of JLA.
And so it turns out this is a Cobra base, but they were killed by the monkeys. And then the monkeys show up, there's a fight, and in the process, Batman steals Connor's bow and is like, move to the side. He's just kind of being an ass, and like, especially in the Green Arrow issue that's starting this off, like, it makes Batman look really annoying and just makes Green Arrow look kind of shitty. But this issue ends with the whole base exploding, and I'll let Mike pick up with the issue that the No Man's Land is skipping.
Yep. It is Batman in Detective Comics number 723. This is part 2 of the Brotherhood and the Fist. I like the cover with the avalanche coming while Batman and Connor on the snowy mountain.
Yeah, this is a great cover.
Also, I can't remember if you said Chuck Dixon wrote all of this, so it's our first episode. We're a singular writer across the board. But Alex Maleev is the penciler on this issue, so very we saw him once before in this series, but this is definitely his better issue of the two.
Well, I think last time it was only in like Chronicles or something. I think
it was not. I think he was the main feature in that Chronicles one where all the goons were hired by Batman to help people. Yeah, I think he was the one that drew that. But this is full show. He's on Detective Comics, like one of the more flagship books. It's always odd to not see his art by the time he gets to Daredevil to me, just because his Daredevil run is so ingrained in my brain. But you can start to see some of his like shadowing effects that he would later use in Daredevil here. His art here, because of the coloring and the inking, looks a little bit more like plasticky, but that's the way a lot of DC books look then. Kind of looks like how everything has like a glowy finish to it.
Yeah.
But I still like his art here.
Yeah, I like it, and there's some more coincidence because he's going to be the artist. He's back at DC, and is going to be the artist on Event Leviathan, which starts this week. And we're definitely not going to see Connor Hawke in that book, but I imagine we'll see Batman. And I believe, I want to say, I don't know. Never mind. I was thinking whether.
He also drew. He's already drawn Batman because he did the Detective Comics 1000 story with Bendis since he's been back at DC. But he also, if you remember, in the Year of the Villain 25-cent issue / Free Comic Book Day issue, he did draw Green Arrow in that.
Yeah.
So kind of funny how everything just times a flat circle. But this issue basically it introduces Robin and Nightwing to the story. They're investigating the monkey cults there in Gotham, while Connor and Batman are fighting their way out of the base and get surrounded on a mountain, and an avalanche happens, and they gotta escape that. Pretty much the gist of this issue. I like particularly the sequence of Batman pulling Connor out of the avalanche as it's coming down. I thought that was good. Really like all the city stuff with Nightwing and Robin. I thought that was where Malieve's art shined the most. They run into Eddie and Jansen there, so that's kind of where their paths converge because Eddie's in Gotham looking for Connor. So everyone's kind of briefed up to the point. We see Black Canary get introduced as Oracle calls her in to help. So I'm wondering, is this pre Birds of Prey?
It's pre the ongoing series still, I believe, but there have been like little trickle one shots and stuff.
So they have a mini.
Yeah. And Black Canary runs into Bronze Tiger.
Because I know Dinah's wearing her costume.
Yeah. Bronze Tiger in the panel that introduces him looks really badass. Alex Maleev with lots of shadow.
Yeah, he looks great.
And like also,
particularly that panel where he shows up, like, oh, that's 10 years later.
Yeah. And also, it might be the second to last panel of the entire issue. There's a really cool panel once Bruce has pulled Connor out of the snow where he just drapes his humongous cape around him. That's a great panel. Yeah. And we also see cameos of some other major characters with martial arts backgrounds. We see Judo Master, Katana, and The Question. None of which show up again, but we see them quickly. All right, Michael, take us.
Questions is like blink and you miss it.
Yeah. Michael, take us over to Robin.
Okay, so part 3 of this story is issue 55 of Robin, still written by Dixon, penciled by someone called Will Rosado. Did a quick Google search on him. Doesn't seem like there's a lot out there about him, but he did some G.I. Joe work for Marvel and some Titan stuff, I think. So yeah, not a whole lot happens in this issue. Starts out Batman Connor still lost in the snow, and Batman says something about his car, and Connor's like, "Oh, a car can't make it through the snow. This is no ordinary car." And it's a Batmobile with these big tricked out tires. And they head off to Gotham.
You know where that Batmobile is from?
Sorry, what?
Do you know where that particular Batmobile is from?
No, it's kind of monster truck looking, but I don't know.
Yeah. The first kind of iteration of that car is from The Cult by Jim Starlin.
Oh, yeah. I haven't read that yet, but it's on my list. I'm kind of also slowly going through the post-crisis Batman, which I'd started before I got into this project, so also working on the quote-unquote Strange Apparitions run, so I probably should narrow down what I'm reading it. Yeah, I didn't make it too far into the Echohart Rogers, but I'm definitely getting back into that pretty soon. So yeah, Batman and Connor head to Gotham in their crazy snowmobile monster truck. And then we see the sensei guy who's wearing orange. He's like the head of this monkey clan, I guess. Does he have a name? Or
I don't think so. I don't remember.
They call him Sensei, but he's not the Sensei character because Sensei from
no,
DC
not
has no
the
arms.
sensei.
Yeah, this Sensei has no arms.
This guy. Oh, yeah, I guess I didn't notice. Anyway, so yeah, he's working with Deathstroke, who for some reason is wearing a mask that's dark blue and light blue instead of orange and black or blue. So Deathstroke's just completely blue with some mech-looking stuff on him.
Yeah,
weird.
So my understanding of this, and I might have the timing slightly off. So Deathstroke had an ongoing series in the 90s, and it was the entire thing was written by Marv Wolfman, his creator, going back to New Teen Titans #2, and it started out relatively strong. There were George Perez covers, but not interiors. And there's a arc, I think it's called like Nuclear Winter, or I think that's what it's called. And then there's an arc called World Tour, and this is early on in the series. And it's pretty well regarded, but it's just one of those 90s series where like the sales weren't great, but it also was an era where like you didn't really need to cancel books, and you just like try weird shit, I guess. I don't know. But at one point, Deathstroke like gets like de-aged and some of his memory wiped, and he has this weird blue costume. I believe that's his current status quo, but it's not really addressed here at all. It's just like, here's Deathstroke and he has a weird costume.
Yeah, I noticed in a later issue when his mask is ripped up, he's like clean shaven, so he looked different. I also didn't notice any eye patch or anything, yeah. So that was probably in with the de-aging thing was why he looked, but why he was going beardless. So anyway, then we cut back to Gotham, and suddenly Batman and Connor are in Gotham, and Connor's with Tim, and they're stopping this little gang wearing crazy cartoon animal masks. One of them looks like Howard the Duck. They actually call him Ducky. Are they like actual characters, or are they just showing up here? Like,
I don't think so. They could be some minor Gotham goons from the 90s.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So they beat them up, and they have some. I liked their interactions in here. This is probably the highlight of the issue. Connor and Tim. Let's see. Is this was this issue or the previous one where he asks if Batman's his father? Oh no, that is issue. Yeah, I thought that was kind of neat. Like, oh, you're little, like 10 years early on that one, Connor. This Robin's not Batman's biological son.
Well,
yeah, his alive at the moment.
Is Batman's son, because later on, Bruce would go and adopt him, but yeah, still like a.
Oh right. Like after his dad dies in the Identity Crisis, or
yeah, he adopts him officially after Identity Crisis.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so that's always kind of an interesting aspect of superhero stuff to me, is when they don't know each other's secret identities, so they just guess at what the relationship to each other is. Like, I think there have been times like people didn't even know how many Robins there had been, or that Nightwing used to be Robin and stuff like that. And of course, to the general public, it's probably different from what other superheroes. Which that reminds me of something kind of funny in this arc overall. There's been several allusions to people not thinking Batman was real, thinking he was just an urban legend. And I find that kind of funny. Like someone mentioned earlier in the podcast that he's been Batman for 10 years in universe at this point. I kind of think people, like, if he's been in the Justice League and they're like public figures, kind of, I don't understand why people are still unsure that he exists. But I don't know, they're like just light retconning, or
just... Yeah, I mean, as we said, that's something that the Batman office is trying to like force onto these books, but it just really doesn't line up no matter how you cut it.
Okay, I'll admit I'm actually not caught up on this podcast itself, unfortunately. So, yeah, I've watched some of it, but I'm not completely caught up. That probably would have been good background. But anyway, so yeah, Connor mentions like Tim mentions the Batman's actually said nice things about Connor and his talents, and he's surprised by that. But and then he's like, "Oh, he made me feel like I wasn't good enough." And Tim's just like, "Oh, he has that effect on everyone. That's our Batman, unsupportive." um, and that part's kind of funny. They accidentally switched the dialogue bubbles. They're pointing at the wrong characters in that panel. It's not super distracting. Um, so yeah, then they fight. Oh yeah, they run into the obsidian monkeys and the mysterious masked paper monkey, whose identity is revealed later. It's Lady Shiva, but we don't find that out in this issue. And yeah, I think that that's pretty much it. The paper monkey takes out all the obsidian monkeys because the monkeys all have different building materials, I guess, as there. And I think they talk about that later. So yeah, that's pretty much about all that happened in the issue. The highlight was Connor and Tim's banter, and yep,
Yeah,
that issue.
There's some good references and stuff. Like Bronze Tiger is overhearing Black Canary talking to Oracle, and he's like, "Oh shit, I used to know this Oracle from when I was in the Suicide Squad."
Oh, I did notice that. Yeah,
That's when, in continuity, that's when Barbara is introduced again as Oracle in that Suicide Squad series. And so there's that parallel, and then also Tim Drake makes a joke about an aero car.
Yeah,
but Connor doesn't drive, so he's not going to have an aero car like his dad.
Aeromobile, Aero Cave. He had the works back in the Silver Age.
Yeah. I'm going to take us over to Nightwing number 23. And this is the classic creative team, Dixon McDaniel. I think this cover, not the best showing of McDaniel, particularly Batman. Like, I think it's just the angle.
No.
It's just the angle on some of these characters where McDaniel's like cartooniness and exaggerated anatomy. Every once in a while, he doesn't hit, and this cover is a little weak to me.
He makes up for it on the opening page, though.
Yeah. The interior I didn't have any problems with. So then we're in wherever the Monkey Clan's like actual headquarters is. It's never really said. I assume it's somewhere in like Asia or Middle East or something, but I don't think we get any reference to that. But there's a bamboo monkey, and no, in Gotham there's a bamboo monkey, and fights kind of the three young characters, and Canary and Bronze Tiger are at the headquarters. They're captured by Deathstroke, but then Eddie shows up to help them, and again just guns people down. And our four main heroes find the Gotham version of their headquarters. And this is where I think it's worth noting that like the actual like No Man's Land and Cataclysm references, they're pretty minimal. It's set up in the very beginning when we're in Gotham, where Nightwing and Robin are talking about the earthquake, and there's a reference to they have some banter with Connor Hawke about he's from San Francisco, so he has some experience or history with California earthquakes. But in this issue is the really only time that we see it actually like affect things, because the monkeys have set up base within Gotham in a building that's on its side, and so they have to traverse it very carefully. And then Connor and Dick learn that the paper monkey is Lady Shiva, and all this martial arts stuff actually just lines up way before this. So Dennis O'Neil, who at this point is the editor of the entire Batman franchise and has been for a long time, he created Richard Dragon as a character and title in the 70s, which was basically DC's version of Iron Fist or Shang-Chi Master of Kung Fu in the 70s, where these like martial arts heroes were popular across media, and comic books followed that. And Lady Shiva first appears in that series, the Richard Dragon series, as a sympathetic villain. Same exact story with Bronze Tiger. And O'Neil in the Batman books in the 70s created the League of Assassins with the Al Ghuls and Talia, who's referenced here. And before this as well, Lady Shiva trained Black Canary with some of her martial arts, which sets up and Black Canary had to do that because she loses her powers. It's all connected. Black Canary lost her powers in the Mike Grell Green Arrow stuff. And so she heightened her martial arts abilities to account for that. And at this point, Canary still doesn't have her Canary screen. I'm trying to remember exactly when she gets that back. I should know that, but it's way later than everyone thinks. And then O'Neil also had a run on The Question, which tied The Question into all this mysticism, martial arts stuff. Lady Shiva shows up in that.
Richard Dragon also does. That's the one who trains him out.
Yeah.
Trains him at the beginning of the run.
Yeah, Lady Shiva saves him from getting his ass kicked. Then she takes Richard Dragon to train him. So yeah, it all crosses over there.
And Lady Shiva trained Tim Drake as Robin in, I think that's Robin 2 or Robin 3. There's like 3 Robin miniseries before the ongoing, and they all have subtitles. One's Joker's Wild, and I always get the 3 of them mixed up.
I think it's 2 because I think 3 is Joker's Wild.
Yeah. And eventually, as Mike alluded that Lady Shiva is going to have interactions with Cassandra Cain, Batgirl, but also she's Cassandra Cain's mother. And then past this, Chuck Dixon, like several years after what we're reading now, will write another Richard Dragon series, which will have Connor Hawke as an occasional guest star after his cancellation. And so it's it's really interesting how like this crossover just like is 100% natural. It's based on continuity going back. I mean, this is 1999, so some of this goes back nearly 20 years. I was about to say no, nearly 30 years. And it's tying together Lady Shiva and the Batman family and the League of Assassins and The Question and all these characters and Black Canary and Bronze Tiger. And it is really just like kind of my take. One of my takes on this was that like you couldn't do this crossover to the same extent right now, because even though they're not like directly referencing at like events from Richard Dragon Volume 1 in 1973, these kinds of long-term developments and character relationships and the interweaving web of the shared universe, you just have to allow lots of build-up for that to happen. And theoretically, we can get there again, but technically, sort of, the current DC universe only goes back to 2011. And so you can't really do something like this. But that's my little spiel, and I'll let Mike lead us towards the conclusion.
Yes, the final conclusion in Green Arrow number 135. As we were teased on the cover, Green Arrow no more, ? As Green Arrow's holding one of the monkey masks and looking like he's going to put it on. Same creative team as the previous issue of Green Arrow, though I do want to comment on the coloring of this issue, particularly on faces. It feels like everyone's skin tones are like 3 shades darker than it should be. Though Connor's has never been consistent at all. Yeah. But Nightwing has himself a really orange hot dog skin looking tan on the opening page of this book. But yeah, Nightwing, Connor Hawke, and Robin all end up getting confronted by Lady Shiva, and it's Shiva and Connor Hawke in a big fight. Nightwing gets taken out early, and he's like kind of dazed, and we got the rest of the monkey cult coming in. So Nightwing and Robin have to deal with that. Is Connor and Shiva are fighting. Really good fight panels here. As it's just like this hard hitting fight that are crashing through walls and everything. Deathstroke and Eddie are doing their thing in the dungeon, but honestly, I don't really care about that, as Deathstroke just kind of feels like an afterthought here, along with Black Canary and Bronze Tiger. I just kind of feel like they were shoehorned here, and nothing really ever was truly done with them. Interesting. They were, especially keeping them completely off to the sidelines, pretty much in this story, except for Eddie, because he actually had interactions with all the other characters. But the big takeaway here is that Connor and Connor and Lady Shiva fight to a standstill, and she was gonna kill Connor, but Tim Drake uses the one life favor that he's owed from Lady Shiva from when he saved her life, and she pays it there. So everyone's saved, and Batman warns Connor Hawke, guess what? Just because this means you're now number 2 in the top martial laws in the world, so just because you survived, everyone's probably going to be gunning for you now. And that's pretty much the end of the crossover. Really fun. I liked this. I thought the fight was particularly really good here, but as we teased, Vince said it earlier, there's only 2 characters that have been able to beat Lady Shiva one-on-one, no interference, in the DC universe. Batman has beaten her twice. Cassandra Cain has beaten her. And then people that have beaten her, but with like interference or use of weapons, Cheshire, Prometheus, and then Vic Sage Question as a Black Lantern. So that one doesn't even count at all. So there you have it.
Yeah, so this is Green Arrow issue 135. Here's the thing, is that there are only kind of 2 more issues of Green Arrow.
Yeah.
And 136 is a tie-in to a Green Lantern arc. It's called Emerald Knights, where a past version of Hal Jordan comes to hang out with Kyle and basically learn his history, and then Parallax comes in, etc. And so Green Arrow 136 ties into that. And then you have 137, which is the final issue. But then after that is the 1 million issue. But, those don't really count because of, they're set in 1 million or whatever. Slightly different continuity. And then Green Arrow is canceled. Connor Hawke does not have a title to call his home. He becomes a rare guest star and really just appearing in Chuck Dixon books. He appears in an arc of Robin later. He appears in an arc of Cassandra Cain Batgirl. He appears in some Birds of Prey. And then it'll be 3 years until Kevin Smith brings Oliver Queen back from the dead and relaunches a Green Arrow title to some considerable acclaim and success. And I'm trying to think. So also at the end of this issue, there's a tease for, I guess, Silver Monkey, who was like the monkey who in the first place beat Connor Hawke. And the monkeys didn't end up executing him. They just jailed him. And then the final panel of this crossover is a tease for him. And I don't think that really comes back because Green Arrow's canceled. It's saying that Silver Monkey's next appearance is Batman the 12th Cent Adventure, which is the start of War Games, which Mike has read recently. Do you remember Silver Monkey showing up?
I don't at all. But then again, I don't remember a lot of the early beginnings of War Games. There's a lot of it is just like scattered detective stuff. So I don't remember him at all.
It must have been like a super weird flashback or something because he appears in that. and then nothing else. And then he was in one issue of Salvation Run, which was the weird like post Final Crisis miniseries or something where a bunch of villains or I don't know. I don't really understand Salvation Run. And so before that, Silver Monkey, Batman and Robin faced him in the crossover War of the Dragons, which was a crossover between Detective and Robin, which I remember because the Robin issue, I believe, is drawn by Mike Rengo. That's during his short run on Robin. But this was a really cool crossover to me. I think the detour was worth it, unlike some of the other various detours that we've taken on Clone Saga and other shows.
Yeah, I'd say this probably tops my list of detours we've taken on these types of shows. Though I don't know, Planet of the Symbiotes still might be my top spot just because it's so outlandishly fun.
Yeah.
But I think this whole episode benefited from being one writer across the board. So I thought it moved a lot smoother and obviously a lot more like consistent throughout then, because we're not jumping around to like five Batman book. Well, we did though, but they were all by the same writer, so it's not like the only thing that changed here was the art.
Yeah, what's your guys's? I guess the next question is, what's your guys' takeaway on Connor Hawke coming out of this? Because I'm assuming most of us have really very, very limited experience with Connor Hawke.
I like Connor Hawke. I've always liked Connor Hawke. It's hard to try to track down anything with him to read in it because DC has like never reprinted the Chuck Dixon run, so you're only going to be able to get it in like digital. But I think that I think that I remember I mentioned it. I think last week that when Kevin Smith wrote his Green Arrow run, he wanted to pay tribute to everyone, and he even put out he listed Chuck Dixon as former writers he wanted to kind of pay homage to, and and I know that there's a sect of like Green Arrow fans that say that Time as Connor Hawke is kind of an underrated gem. So I'd definitely be down to check out more of Dixon's Green Arrow run. Connor Hawke also never appeared once. He has not appeared since Flashpoint. He has been a character completely lost. I looked that up before we did this show. So yeah, he has not been seen since the DC universe rolled into the New 52 and Rebirth.
Yeah, they kind of because you basically had a Green Arrow family, which I think does Kevin Smith use that terminology?
I don't know if he uses that terminology, but there's definitely a family.
Yeah.
Like he definitely lays the groundwork for that family feel there, because he has Connor's living with Ollie in his run.
Because eventually, I'm pretty sure like they straight up just call themselves the Green Arrow family, and because Kevin Smith brought Ollie back, and you don't see a ton of Connor, but Connor's there, and I would say honestly, Connor's way more of a presence post Quiver than Wally was post Flash Rebirth.
I'd agree.
Though I would say
sample size very small.
Yeah, to be fair, but Connor's a presence, and then you have Mia Dearden as the new Speedy, and eventually, obviously, Oliver Queen gets married to Black Canary. So you have this whole Green Arrow family, and obviously there's Roy Harper.
Yeah, Roy's still around.
Initially as Arsenal, and then I guess he becomes Red Arrow during after Kevin Smith.
He officially becomes Red Arrow in Meltzer's Justice League. Yeah. As he's gifted like the Green Arrow costume, but shaded red.
So you had this Green Arrow family, and in the post Flashpoint era, it's just totally different. I mean, Roy has had interactions with Ollie, but I feel like they're less close, which just kind of is something that applies to most of the Titans post Flashpoint. And Connor or Mia Dearden don't really exist, and now you have Emiko Queen and Diggle or whatever, bunch of new characters. less interesting to me.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Like going back and reading Smith's run, I like Mia Dearden. We haven't seen her since Flashpoint too. So yeah, basically we get to that point where Green Arrow is ruined and it'll never be fixed.
Yep. All right.
Yeah.
Any closing thoughts?
I like Connor Hawk. I hadn't read anything of him before, but I was aware of him and how he's disappeared since 2011. But yeah, I think I got a good feel for his personality and from these issues. And yeah, I'm definitely interested to look into more of his appearances eventually. And
Cool. All right, everyone. Thanks for watching this episode. Tune in next time where we get back to the road to no man's land proper with Aftershock Part 2. Thanks for being on the show, Michael. Everyone, check out his channel. And
thank you. You're welcome.